Well, greetings, fact fans, and welcome to my basement lab once again, where I have a nice blue Hoover Rewind on the bench, or really on the carpet, as it were. So let's do some airflow and suction tests. We're going to start out with the hose, and in this case, the entire cyclonic assembly and the filters have been cleaned, washed, well, the one that you can clean and wash, and then of course the HEPA filter has been vacuumed off and appears to be in just gloriously good condition. So let's see what we have for airflow from the end of the hose. Let's see, 2795 times the conversion factor, and we're at about 73 CFM. And that really is pretty typical for a machine like this, especially a machine that I think sells on sale for, like, say, under $100. All right, let's clear down and take a look at the suction. And then, of course, we have to put it on the airflow box. So this is going to be more of a violent test, I suppose. All right, so let's see what happens. I saw 78 inches of lift. So that's pretty typical for a machine like this. Now, let's go and put this bad boy on the airflow and suction box and see what it reads. So if we take a look at the Hoover Rewind rug plate, you can see that this is a very smooth surface here, very smooth, unbroken surface here. You do have some little relief holes, some notches at the very sides. So this will be fairly easy to seal up, except for the point that trying to seal this rear, I'm going to have to go and use something, say, like this. Or I could use like a towel or something like that and put it across it, because these wheels right here sit even on low, where they're pushed in as far as you can get. These wheels sit a little proud of the general plane of where this rug plate is, so they sit a little up from it. So that's going to put a bump in here, and that means that this wouldn't be sealed normally. So I'm going to have to use something like that to actually just seal the rear, and then getting the sides and the front, that's going to be easy. Now, something else I want to call your attention to, take a look at the bristles. I think that these bristles are fairly heavily, say, abused and or worn. Now, I don't mean worn down like they are somehow thinner or shorter. These appear to look to be the same length, but the tufts themselves appear to be much more spread out and a lot less stiff. And I think I have an equivalent brush roll right here that's the same thing, only it's in red. And if you take a look at the bristles closely, they're much stiffer, they're the same length, but you can see spaces in between them, and they stand up straight, a lot straighter than these do. So when I end up doing, say, maybe a baking soda test, or maybe a flour test, or even the sand test, I don't know exactly how that's going to affect the results. So this brush roll is only a little over a year old, and this type of behavior, when the bristles begin to spread out, they might make things a little better, they might make things a little worse. So I suppose it's just kind of a wild guess at this point in time what it's going to do. So tell me if anybody has this machine how do these bristles actually look? Do they look an absolute mess, or did the brush roll come with them actually kind of spread out like this? Now it's time for some nozzle airflow. So we're going to do this in several steps. First one we're going to do, I can't turn the brush roll off with this. First one we're going to do is with all the filters in. That is all 2 filters in, really. There's a lower HEPA filter and then there's an upper sponge filter. So let's start out with all the filters in and see what it does. And everything's been completely washed, obviously, like I mentioned earlier. All right, I'll take 2067 times the conversion factor. And we are at 53, well, almost 54 CFM. Okay, so hey, you know, what do you want? That's just not really that bad. Almost 54 CFM. So now let me take out the HEPA filter, the one that's on the bottom, and let's see how much airflow that's actually robbing the machine of. So that's what it looks like on both sides. It's been cleaned as well as you can get it clean anyway. And let's see what it rises up to. All right, minus the HEPA filter, we've boosted from about 54 to really about 60. So that's about a 6 CFM difference by taking the HEPA filter out. And this HEPA filter, if you haven't seen it, the bottom part actually does have a rubber seal. The top part doesn't, but I suppose it wouldn't need it because it goes and spews its exhaust up through the cord, the rewind mechanism, and up out right underneath the bin. But this bottom part here does actually have a small seal there. Okay, so 59.6 CFM. Now I'm going to take out the upper sponge filter, but realize that the sponge filter does help make a seal with the top of the bin itself. And it might not be a very accurate representation, but there is the sponge filter removed. That's what the top of the bin looks like. See, there's a seal there. And that's supposed to push against the top of that filter. Okay, so now we have, obviously, both filters out. And this was washed and dried. Move those off to the side. Let's see if we actually gain anything. So 59.6, and we took the remaining filter out. Let's see if it makes any difference. All right, I think it bumped up a little bit. Just a tiny bit. So 59.6 to 61.6. So taking this out made about a 2 CFM difference, and taking this out made about a 6 CFM difference. So for a total of, you could gain about 8 CFM. Of course, don't run them without these filters. Well, you know what? If you run it without the HEPA filter, that's not really going to hurt anything, because that's just exhaust emissions. But you got to run it with this guy in there. Otherwise, it's just going to be a mess. Okay, so now on to the suction tests. Now it's time for a suction test. And remember that the rug plate on this Hoover is a plastic on plastic seal, so there's no rubber anywhere, and I bet you if they decided to seal it up better, you'd get a lot better suction than what you're going to see here, because I think it has a higher potential for that. So turn your headphones down, it's going to get loud, and let's see what we see. All right, I saw 31 inches of lift. I don't think that's bad for such an inexpensive machine. And don't forget to stay tuned for a lot more tests, and not the least of which would be a whole house cleaning, which I know some people will like.